Let's go. Welcome to the Uncontested podcast, talking Oklahoma City Thunder basketball and the wider NBA.
Sam Presti said, lower the hatch, load up the cannon, and get the tank out rolling.
Catch new episodes after each Thunder game and every Sunday night.
This is a house of learned doctors.
Follow the Uncontested on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to catch new content as it drops.
Cat and a dog connect together.
This is Lou Dort. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up? Welcome to the Uncontested podcast. We are part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, coming to you live Sunday night, September 12th on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. I'm your host for the evening, Jacob Niffen. Got Justin along with me tonight.
Hello, everybody.
Nick Crane is along for the ride.
Baker Mayfield is overrated.
Easy killer.
Taylor Peterson is here.
How about those Chiefs?
And working the magic behind the scenes over here, we have JD Silva.
I'm a Vikings fan and everything is pain.
That is what it seems like. I am not an NFL guy, if you followed the pod at all. You know this. But I tweeted today, guys, I'm on a 1-year veteran minimum contract to be a fan of the Arizona Cardinals.
Good luck.
I like
See
it.
how it goes.
DeAndre
looks
Hopkins is the
fantastic.
GOAT.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray is
Speaking of
fun to
fantastic.
Kyler Murray's
watch.
fun. Yep.
Kyler Murray is very fun. So that's what I got going for me.
It's good. It's good for
I
you.
like
That and some college football.
It's better than like 3 years ago when you thought you were going to be a fan of the Vikings.
Yeah, Silva talked me into that, and I had to start doubling my depression medication that fall. So
That can happen.
Things changed whenever we signed Kirk Cousins for $30 million a year.
Oh,
that's a lot of money.
It's mediocrity.
One thing I didn't realize, I guess, that much until I started kind of looking into it, NFL players have to be so envious of NBA players.
Yes.
All sports. Even like
Like-
baseball, when they get those humongous contracts, it's like a 12-year deal, and it's not that much.
that's a great
average
point.
year.
It's not per year. Yep. It's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know. I just see like, oh, this really big football player just signed for $8 million a season, and I was like, oh, so we got the mid-level exception.
And it's
Cool.
like
The
$2.5
Kyle
million
Singler.
guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's never fully guaranteed ever.
I was like, meanwhile, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's about to make $27 million a year. So
Not too bad.
That's why when you
Not
pay your
too
quarterback,
bad.
your window of contention shrinks a little bit because you can't put talent around him.
I guess it's just a byproduct of having so many more players on a roster, right?
True.
Yeah, no
So-
doubt.
And this is why the NBA is superior to the NFL.
Yes.
I will die on that hill.
I don't have an NFL team, so I'm just listening to y'all. Sounds fun, though.
Justin, do you do fantasy football?
I do. I actually just got a notification that Darrell Henderson Jr. just ran for a touchdown. I don't know who that is, but he's on my team.
But he's on my team.
I am
That's
not a
awesome.
fantasy football guy, but hey, I do enjoy some fantasy basketball. So maybe we'll have to do a
Yes.
uncontested plus listeners fantasy basketball league this fall. That might be
I
fun.
like it. I like
That
that,
might
a
be
lot.
so
fun.
much fun. Nick and I
know.
we're thinking about doing a dynasty league.
Oh yeah.
That sounds hard.
I don't know what that means.
You keep your players each year. You don't redraft. You have to draft.
Oh, that's
you have
cool.
to draft youth if you're
You're a
interested in the
franchise.
long game, or you can draft.
Mm.
It's almost like if the NBA actually had a real fantasy draft. Like, do you want to go young? Do you want to try to
Yeah.
win now?
I'm pulling the Sam Presti, trading
Yeah.
everything for picks.
Yes, absolutely.
You guys better still be alive in 10 years because that's when I'm going to run the fantasy basketball league.
Winning all the money for years to come.
Well, gentlemen, middle of September, not a lot of NBA news going around unless you want to talk about the Thunder signing a new two-way guy, which I'm going to be
Waiting
real
Josh
honest.
Hall.
I don't want to talk about that. So we're not going to do that because nobody knows who those guys are.
I don't know who that is.
Really cares.
Yeah.
We are about 2 weeks out from the start of training camp, though. So that's exciting.
That is
Training-
exciting.
when training camp starts, we will get the annual blue-white scrimmage, which will be fun. We'll get some preseason games, which will be fun.
We'll get to find out who this year's Admiral Schofield is.
That is very true.
Guy that we think is absolutely going to make the team and
Frank
then gets
Jackson.
cut.
Yeah.
Frank Jackson. Yes.
No,
So-
that was Trailer. That was a crush you had. That wasn't a.
Oh,
wasn't
that was a
prospect
crush I
evaluation.
had.
His eyes, though.
I was convinced.
So not a whole lot of stuff to talk about. However, and I'm going to be real honest, I don't know which one of you tweeted this on our podcast account, although I have a hunch, and I'm interested to find out here in a second. The NBA 2K ratings are out,
Yes.
and the fun one is that Lou Dort and apparently Moses Brown are side by side on 2K ratings. Which one of you tweeted that from the account?
That was me.
That's what I thought. That's what I
I would
thought.
have bet money on that. We've talked about this before, but I feel like with 95% certainty, I can tell you which one of us tweeted any given tweet.
If
on
it's
the
more
account.
than one
account.
emoji, it's Taylor.
Yep.
100 or anything over like 100 characters as Taylor.
Yes.
guaranteed.
Taylor tweets like he podcasts. He's
Lots
very
of words.
long-winded.
Lots of expressions.
If it is controversial at all, it is Nick. And if it's very articulate, it is Justin.
Yes.
I was going to say if it has a picture or a GIF.
That's also true.
Yeah.
And then I don't
What-
know
what's your brand, Jacob?
I don't know. You guys tell me.
Stats. Like stats and
Yeah, like actual like
research.
meaningful
Yeah,
content.
right. Yeah.
That's probably Jacob.
That's where Jacob comes in.
I don't know about that. So
Yeah.
not a lot of Thunder stuff to talk about. Besides, I did want to mention that 2K rating. What's up with that? Like, are they just very undervaluing Lou Dort in 2K? Are they insanely overvaluing Moses Brown?
Don't forget about Josh Giddey, who is the third highest rated rookie
I
in the
saw that.
entire
Fascinating.
2K.
I love that so much. But with Moses Brown, I feel like it's one of those things where like the stats probably are inflating things. And then I think just, he's a giant human being, and like how low of a rating can you give somebody that's that large? I think there's kind of a baseline there that you have to hit
True.
when you're that big. I don't know how stats on 2K actually work on the back end, but I feel like if you're 7'2", you probably have a floor of like a 70.
That's interesting because, guys, I don't know if Moses Brown will be in the NBA at the end of this season.
Mass fans sure are excited. They've brought all the Celtics fans hype.
Yeah.
And they're all about the Moses Brown.
Yeah.
Well, I
Mavs
hope it
fans are
works out.
excited, and they should not be excited. I know that's kind of
That's
rude,
what we
but it's
keep.
true.
That's what we keep saying.
I also feel like Lou Dort's a little underrated on those rankings, though.
that
right? Like,
that did surprise me because it seems like you guys mentioned with 2K, it there's always they kind of buy into the hype around players, right?
Yeah.
Like for example, I'm kind of shocked that Poku isn't like a 90. We saw Josh Giddey, and I think one of you, I don't remember who said this in our Slack, our chat, but Giddey being so involved with TikTok, and obviously him playing overseas, that plays a large factor into it as well, playing professional basketball before heading into the NBA rather than just college. But that makes sense why he would have maybe a higher rating than we expected. But I was pretty surprised when it came to Lou Dort, just a player that I think has a lot of hype when you think about the OKC Thunder, especially a lot of like outside NBA fans who haven't watched a lot of the Thunder over the past season. Lou Dort, Shea, Poku are kind of the three players they think of. So that did surprise me, Jacob.
Yeah, it's I've never been into 2K. I'm not really like a big 2K player. The ratings don't matter a lot to me, unlike Hassan Whiteside. But you guys remember that?
Yes.
I'm just trying to get my 2K rating up.
Love it.
So it's, I don't know. I found it fascinating. It's gonna be interesting to see how those change moving forward.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of it is analytics based, like what's the word I'm looking here, like the formula or the like the algebraic equation they use to figure out what the rating should be on 2K, like, and how much of it is eye test and just
Lou
like
Dort's
personal
plus
bias.
minus was pretty ugly last season. So.
Yeah, I wonder how much that goes into it versus if you just watch Lou, you know that he's pretty dadgum good,
Yep. We did
So-
a question in the chat of what was Poku's rating. I'm on 2kratings.com, which is apparently a real website, and Poku is listed at a 74. So if you are interested in Thunder player ratings, Shea, obviously the highest, 86. Lou Dort,
Seems
while
fair.
only a 78, is the second highest player on the Thunder.
Seems
So-
unfair.
That yeah, right. So that feels right. Some other notables, like we mentioned, Josh Giddey, 75, which is the same as Darius Baisley and Ty Jerome. Then you have Teo
fair.
at a 74, Gabriel Deck, 74. Let's see, Trey Mann, 72, JRE, 70. So basically, the Thunder are lots of all.
Where's
70s
Charlie Brown Jr.
all
at,
70s
Justin?
and Shea. Charlie Brown Jr., 69. Nice.
Nice.
Very nice. What about former Thunder player Josh Hall?
66.
Oh,
The
he's on there.
lowest
Good for Josh
player
Hall.
on the team.
I got a question. You guys may have already answered this whenever I had some difficulties there. Would you rather have cut Charlie Brown Jr. or Josh Hall?
It is-
question.
I don't really
Non-guaranteed
give a
Charlie
shit an
Brown
answer.
Yeah.
Jr. No,
Wow.
that's
Can we
valid
cut
answer.
them both?
Dang, dude. I would have
I
rather
would-
cut Charlie Brown.
I agree.
That's what I was going
The
to say.
Probably.
genesis of my question.
Probably, I'm in the same boat. I do like Charlie Brown's hair, though. He gets a few points for staying around for
Does
the hair.
have cool hair. Fair.
Yes.
It is fair. He's got cool hair. All right, let's talk
Are you going to
about.
drop bars on us? What is this?
Let's. I got my mixtape coming out. It's going to be better than Certified Lover Boy, which was garbage. But
No,
we're not
Donda
gonna-
is garbage.
But what about Trey Mann? Mix
Oh yeah, Trey Mann's got
Trey 1K.
Trey 1K.
Trey 1K.
Well, speaking of looks for Thunder players, our man Josh hitting the gym.
Ripped.
You're on
Look
the
at
stream,
that.
you can see this. My man's got veins popping out of places I didn't know you even had veins at.
You can't talk
Hey,
about
I like
that.
lifting weights in front of the bathroom mirror also. He's got a little shower in the background.
See, that was my first thought is, A, who took this picture?
Yeah.
B, why is he in the bathroom with 35-pound dumbbells?
25 or 30. Yes, exactly.
Makes it really
He
easy to jump in
obviously-
the shower afterwards.
Is
He,
it?
he
I bet.
propped it up on his wall mirror, right? Like it was automatic timer.
Like,
Yeah,
this,
he's the
this
TikTokers.
gives me high school, I mean, he's 18. Gives me high school basketball locker room vibes. Like, snap this
100%.
pic for the gram so these ladies can see me jacked.
It's a thirst trap for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But
It's
A,
worked on a large portion of Thunder Twitter.
yes, he is jacked. He's got, like I said, veins coming out of places I didn't even know veins could come out of.
It's not safe for work.
There's like 0% body fat. And I don't know, just maybe the lighting in the bathroom was the best place to get the tone of
Yeah.
Well, he's
know-
clearly looking at himself in the mirror. So he's,
Oh, I
mean-
he's enjoying this as much as
You're telling me
everyone
whenever
else
you
is.
go to the gym, you don't stand in front of the mirror and like roll your sleeves up as you
Jacob.
curl?
Is this
Jacob,
a, is this a
I don't go to the
self-timer?
gym. I don't go to the gym. This is not a relatable analogy for me.
Silva, I do think you have a good sound drop for the Giddy pick. Is that right?
I think I might.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
Good God.
I'm so excited for Silva's new arsenal of sounders.
It's a work in progress, but we have some material now.
We are
Amazing.
hashtag in trouble. Oh man.
Amazing.
Play it one more
Hey.
time just so I can hear it
Oh
again.
my gosh.
That dude had some veins going.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
What is that even from?
That's what I was about to say.
Have you not seen that video? It's the old man. He's like 90 and he's saying that.
Oh, that's yes.
So
I was gonna
good.
say it reminds me of Joe Exotic.
Oh,
Tiger King.
jeez.
Yeah, I bet Joe Exotic and Josh Giddey would anyway.
Oh,
Probably move on.
Hey,
Oh
Giddy
my
did make it out to
God.
an OU football game this weekend.
Yeah, I did see that. Sean also thought.
Thank
that
you,
it was-
Sean. Thank you. I did as
On
well.
the same page.
Man,
That's incredible.
Lord have mercy on my soul.
Giddy better be working out his ankles too.
No
Yeah,
kidding.
no kidding.
Put down those dumbbells and get the ankle weights like my mom doing jazzercise.
Yep.
That's
Strengthen
right.
them things up.
Oh man.
We better see some live TikTok in that same place in the bathroom of him doing those that aerobics.
And lift. And lift.
Hey,
And swirl.
I say
and
all
lift.
this just a complete aside here. It's from some things that I saw on Twitter, some different tweets, some different quotes from some different players. I want to say maybe it was Archie who mentioned this, but I think the Thunder are trying to get together to do their, their players only, non-official, get together runs that they do. I think it's been in California in the past that Russ used to put together. But
Yeah.
apparently they're all trying to get together and do a little pickup. So we'll see if all those players are together this coming
See
week.
if we get some video. Speaking of Giddy, though, and the jazzercise and the ankle weights and whatever, I believe it was reported at the time of the draft that since his off season in Australia started, he put on like 15 or 20 pounds. And we know he's up to 6'9" now, courtesy of himself. He's the one that made that statement, right? That
His bio is literally 6'9" point guard for the Thunder.
yeah. So
My man didn't get an opportunity, like you said, Nick, to be recruited by colleges, put
I'm gonna
huddle
change-
up in his bio.
I'm going to change my Twitter bio. 6'7" host of the Uncontested.
please do it. Please do it. But I mean, the kid isn't 19 yet. Like, I am not unconvinced that he's not going to end up at 6'11".
That's
And if
the
he can
dream.
get to 6'11", and right now he's at like 210, 215, if he could get to like 6'11", 240,
It happened to Anthony Edwards. He grew
I
2
mean-
inches since the draft.
And Nick, I was
He-
going to mention, like when you went to the draft interviews or introduction interviews that they did, and you have to see Josh like lined up next to some of those players. For example, JRE, who we consider a quote unquote big. I remember you saying that like he looked every bit as tall as JRE, if not as tall, and he's standing
Yeah.
like right next to him, right?
I mean, if he grows more, that is insane.
Long boy.
Yeah.
I love it. Him and Poku in the front court, like the size, the ball handling ability, the vision. It's going to be a very, very fun team. Very fun team. And I'm super excited to watch. I think we talked maybe the last show about this, but a lineup of like Shea, either Dort or Jerome, Poku, Giddy, Baisley is going to be that's not a lineup this season that's going to win you games, but it's going to be a ton of fun to watch.
Agree.
Just the
It's gonna- I was gonna
versatility
say,
is
it's not going to win you
through
anything,
the
but it's gonna
roof.
be a blast.
It's
Yeah.
going to
And
have some
someday-
like fantastic mistakes and terrible low points and horrendous basketball, but it's probably also going to have a lot of really fun plays too.
Yeah, those moments when it clicks
Yep.
and when it all comes together is going to be like, oh shit moments.
Right.
And it's going to be a blast.
Yes.
The highest of highs, yeah, absolutely. It's what the
One
Thunder have
very
kind of
like
transitioned to.
underrated, maybe not underrated aspect of the upcoming season that I think will make it feel better is having fans in the arena.
Yeah.
I think like the low points of the tank last year were just like magnified by playing in this giant empty cavernous arena in Oklahoma City. And so it's just not only is the play on the court dead, but it's literally like lifeless in the arena. I'm hoping
Right.
that having some fans out there will make it a little more exciting. So when Poku does throw a ridiculous behind the back pass, you get like
Full court.
you get a little bit of a reaction from the crowd instead of just like Chris Fisher.
Yeah. I think
Totally.
it'll be fun.
Totally off topic. Josh Giddey signing with Nike. I wonder if he wears the same size as Shea, and Shea can give him all of his old Kobe's since Shea can't wear those anymore.
There you go. We do know
Hashtag
Giddy is a
whole lot
huge
of
fan of
Kobe's.
Kobe's.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I think that
Whole lot of Kobe's.
whatever heat he didn't have, I think Shea can hook him up.
Hook him up with.
Giddy's got a pretty solid shoe collection. I'm
Yeah.
He was
impressed. so
wearing
He's a
far.
big
the-
sneakerhead.
With Travis Scott, Juan Lowe's at the what game was that?
No
Pelicans
fair.
game, and those are, I mean, it's nothing to him, but $1,500 for a pair of sneakers.
It's not even the price. It's a matter of just trying to get your hands on them.
Yeah, no,
Just
you can get your
and then
hands on them
they-
for the right price.
Oh, fair on resale.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick knows a guy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Nick knows the guy. Knows the guy.
Nick's got the plug. All right, guys. Well, last Monday on Memorial Day, we did a Monday morning pod instead of a Sunday night pod. Taylor and I officially kicked off the Uncontested's season preview series. In the past, we have brought in guests for each team. Unfortunately, we just didn't have the manpower to do that this year. So we're breaking down the season previews team by team. We're going division by division this year. And today, gentlemen, we are doing the Atlantic Division. So we are looking at the Boston Celtics, Brooklyn Nets, New York Knicks, Philadelphia 76ers, and Toronto Raptors. Last season, we did the Southeast Division.
One of the best divisions in basketball, eh?
We're just moving right up the coast. Next week, we will do the Central Division in the Eastern Conference, which I don't know if it's going to be that exciting to talk about, but we'll have some stuff to talk about. With that being said, let's dive in and talk about our first team on the list, gentlemen, the Boston Celtics. The Celtics ended last season 36-36, good for 7th in the East. They won their play-in tournament game to earn a spot in the NBA playoffs. They matched up against the 2-seed Brooklyn Nets and lost in, I believe it was 5 games. Does that sound correct? 5 games. Taylor, can you tell us real quick what all Boston did over the summer as far as free agents, trades, who they lost, and who they drafted? Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, definitely. So free agents that they had heading into the season, not nearly as much as teams that you talked about last week, Jacob. Evan Fournier obviously became a free agent. He signed with a team that we will be getting into later in the podcast, the New York Knicks. Luke Cornett, Semi Ojeleye, Taco Fall, kind of an interesting one for them to lose. We'll get into that as well and later in the podcast. Tremont Waters, and then they end up re-signing Robert Williams to a fairly large contract, I think, compared to what I kind of expected, just because of the playing time he's gotten in the past. But I think that just shows the role that he's going to have playing with this team moving forward. We can get into that. They signed Josh Richardson. They got him in a trade from the Dallas Mavericks. Marcus Smart, they ended up signing to a larger contract. Dennis Schroeder, obviously not the contract I think Dennis was looking for, but they ended up getting him on a pretty team-friendly deal. Enes Kanter, they brought back Sam Hauser. I don't even know who that is. And then via trade, they end up acquiring Bruno Fernando and Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn was, I guess both of those players were rather recent, August 7th. Now, going through the timeline, I wanted to say that some of those players were waived, but maybe not. I thought Dunn, something just happened with Chris Dunn.
You left out the big one, which is they also acquired Al Horford.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That was even further back than August. So, yeah, the Thunder ended up trading traded Al Horford to the Celtics for Kimball Walker. And in return, the Thunder also sent out Moses Brown, who we talked about earlier in the podcast. Moses got released by the Celtics, picked up by the Mavericks. Was he sent out again, I guess, in that Josh Richardson trade? That might have been it.
I think that's the case. I think that's
that's
how he
it.
got to Dallas.
So here we are with the Celtics. Not a ton of movement. Nothing major.
Yeah. Biggest additions, I think, probably Al Horford, Dennis Schroeder. I don't know if I consider Enes Kanter a big acquisition because I think he's going to be their third string center going into the season. But Nick and Justin, anything super excite you about Boston? Any storylines or anything going into the season? What interests you with this team going into next year?
I think Schroeder is a steal. Like you mentioned, team friendly. And I think that Schroeder looking for 80 mil, it's one of those things where I think it unfairly tarnished his trade reputation, or his value on the market, I should say. And I think that that's a really good price for Dennis Schroeder. I think that what he's going to bring to the Celtics is going to be way above what they're paying him, and I think that by the end of the season, I think Celtics fans are going to love him because anytime you get a guy on a big discount like that, it affects the way that you perceive him as a fan. It affects the way you perceive him. So if a team got Dennis Schroeder for $80 million, they're probably never going to be satisfied with Dennis Schroeder's play on the court. But if you get him for what the Celtics did, then he's a great piece at that price that can do something for him in the backcourt.
Nick, will Schroeder start for the Celtics?
I think so. I think there's going to be a lot of different lineups where he may not always be the primary ball handler, but I think he'll start at point guard. I agree with Justin. A lot of people said Kimball Walker was the best value contract when the Knicks signed him for basically the difference in the buyout price, so like roughly $8 to $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
I'd argue Schroeder is better value just because he's going to be healthy, knock on wood, more consistently than Kemba is. I know his knees are a huge issue. There's been articles come out that said like his knees are chronic. It's nothing he can recover from. Always going to miss games, kind of the way it is. All that to say, I think Schroeder will be a bigger steal than Kemba for what he was paid. I don't know. I'm still not super high on the Celtics. I think there's 4 to 5 teams in the East I'd take over them. But all things considered, they were looking to dump Kemba at the deadline last year. Couldn't do it. Ended up getting Al Horford back for him and then replaced him with Dennis Schroeder for cheap. I consider that successful.
Yeah. So what does the starting lineup for them look like? Obviously, Schroeder starts. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum start.
Yeah.
But who's at that?
Horford.
Al Horford starts at center. I think you put Tatum at the kind of small ball 4, Smart
Marcus
at the
Smart.
2, Schroeder at the 1, and Jaylen Brown at the 3.
Okay, so Schroeder, Smart, Brown, Tatum, Horford.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Issue is
That's a pretty solid lineup, I think.
And they've got depth too, like Peyton Pritchard, not bad. Aaron Nesmith looks good in summer league.
Mhm.
Grant Williams, Josh Richardson,
Robert Williams.
Robert Williams is going to help them out a lot.
The Time Lord, Robert Williams.
It's time, Lord.
He's the epitome of like everybody that is a Boston fan's obsessed with him, and everyone else in the league is like, he averages 7 and 5, but go pay him all the money you want.
That's what makes me wonder if he's going to play a little more. Just because they did give him that contract, then you bring in an older vet and Al Horford, not the same Al Horford that you had, however many seasons back, 3 or 4 seasons back. I think they're going to rely on Robert Williams a little more this season. But even then, to your point, Nick, like comparing their talent across the board, even if they do have some of the higher talent in Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, even if they do take another step forward, comparing that to some of the depth of, like, for example, some of the teams that we're about to get into, and some of the teams that Jacob and I talked about last week, like the Miami Heat, the Philadelphia. Well, we're going to talk about the Sixers here soon. There's just some teams like that in the Eastern Conference, and some teams at Chicago Bulls, who I was thinking about that we talked about last week, Jacob. Like, I mean, on paper, I would like to think that the Chicago Bulls are going to be better than the Celtics, but I also, like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum a little more than some of those Chicago Bulls players. I just think it's going to be very tough for them without the surrounding talent around those two.
Cue up the hot take sounder. I've got a good one here.
Silva, you got it fired up? I don't know if Silva has the hot take sounder yet.
I don't know.
Too much pressure.
I think, and this is going to be no surprise to you guys, Jabari Parker will be a big-time role player for the Celtics this year.
That sounds about like a Nick take. That checks out. That checks out for sure. I think they're going to be a fun team. I think last year they vastly underperformed. I don't expect the pendulum to swing very far in the other direction for them to overperform this year, but I think they will definitely be better. So the over-under for the Boston Celtics this season, 46 wins. That would be 46 and 30, 46 and 36?
82 minus 46.
38.
38, 46 and 38. I don't know. I'm not good at math. I teach history. Anyways, 46 games. Justin, you taking the over or the under?
I'm going to take the over.
The over by how much? You don't know. Or do they get to 50?
I don't know. No, I don't think somewhere between 47 and 49. Very specific.
It sounds like it's 48 for you. Nick, you taking the over or the under?
I'm going to take the under. Brown coming off of injury, a lot of new faces, might take some time to mesh. I don't know. I'll take the under.
I think that's fair. Taylor, what do you got?
I've got the same exact thing. I'm going about 3 or 4 games under. I think it's for the same reasons that Nick and I already talked about. But let's just say this. Keep an eye on the Celtics if Bradley Beal does come to the realization that he wants out of Washington. That could change things.
Silva, what do you got? Over or
Yeah,
under?
Is this the the under for sure? Is this the wait for Brad Beal season? Wait and hope for Brad Beal.
I think
a good
it's
point.
that season for a lot of teams.
It's
Good point.
for
Wait for
Boston.
Dame.
It's the article comes out. The Boston Celtics were oh so close to acquiring Bradley Beal before Team X did.
Almost Ainge, baby. Even though he's not there anymore.
Almost did it.
I will take the under as well, but I am not going much under. I think for 45, 44, I don't think it's going to be much under 46. So
Agree.
I
awesome.
look
All right.
forward to revisiting this episode when they win game number 47.
I'm ready for it, Justin. Our next one, we have the Brooklyn Nets.
It's an interesting team.
Last season, they end the year 48-24, second in the East. They lose in 7 to the Milwaukee Bucks in a insane series that should have been had Kevin Durant's toes been about an inch and a half farther back. Should have been the Brooklyn Nets in the NBA. No, it wasn't. That was the semis. I forget. That wasn't the Eastern
It wasn't
Conference
the finals. It was, the
should have
semis.
been the Brooklyn Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals had KD pulled his foot back, but the Milwaukee Bucks take that series. So Brooklyn loses in the second round of the Eastern Conference, although they were dealing with not having Kyrie Irving and an incredibly hobbled James Harden. Taylor, tell us what all the Brooklyn Nets did this summer.
So unlike the Celtics and more like some of those Eastern Conference teams we talked about last week, they did have a handful of players approach free agency heading into this offseason. Bruce Brown Jr. obviously played a big role for them this previous season. Spencer Dinwiddie, which we'll get into with one of these other teams. It was one of the teams we covered last week, the Washington Wizards. Jeff Green, who is now with the Denver Nuggets. Blake Griffin, Mike James, Tyler Johnson, former Thunder player TLC, and Reggie Perry, all were free agents for the Brooklyn Nets. So next, they ended up drafting Cam Thomas, as well as, I believe, Day'Ron Sharpe. Some pretty solid pickups for them. Nikola Mulatunov. I don't know who that is, but they acquired his draft rights as well in their
Taylor
draft.
Special.
I did know Cam Thomas, though. They ended up signing him to a multi-year contract. I'm trying to find Day'Ron Sharpe, if they end up signing him. I don't see it.
Day'Ron.
What did I say?
Duran.
I don't see that they've signed him yet, but there's a chance that he has. The biggest thing was they were a part of basically the mega trade, which saw Chandler Hutchinson go to the Spurs, for Russ to the Lakers. The Lakers sent a ton of stuff in return to the Wizards, and Spencer Dinwiddie ended up being a sign trade to the Wizards as well. In return, that's where the Brooklyn Nets ended up getting Nikola What's-His-Face, a more favorable 2024 second-round pick, a swap 2025 second-round pick, and a TPE. So basically, the Nets got a little bit of something rather than just seeing Dinwiddie walk. I think the biggest thing here was that KD signed a veteran extension, basically a max with the Brooklyn Nets. They're apparently still working on extensions with both Kyrie and James Harden, who are both eligible as well. They re-signed Blake Griffin. They were able to acquire Patty Mills in free agency, which I think is a huge pickup for them, which we can get into. LaMarcus Aldridge came out of retirement after his health scare this previous season, and the Brooklyn Nets ended up signing them. We obviously, speaking of LA, we saw the Nets ended up waiving. Why am I going blank? I almost said DeMarcus Cousins. That's terrible.
Jahlil Okafor.
Oh yeah, Okafor. But their main big. Why am I going blank on
DeAndre
Jordan? Who ended up joining the Lakers. Speaking of LA, so Doumbouya from the Detroit Pistons and Okafor, like Nick mentioned, were acquired by the Nets from the Pistons in exchange for DeAndre Jordan. He was bought out by the Detroit Pistons. And let's see if there's anything super big. Johnson became a free agent, and they ended up waiving him. Paul Millsap signed with the Brooklyn Nets, which was a pretty big pickup for them as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It was a very busy offseason for the Brooklyn Nets, but I kind of feel like they got better. I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts.
If we were to podcast in 2014, and I were to ask you guys, what are the top 3 power forwards you want on your team? They all play for the Nets now. LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, Paul Millsap. Like, it's just like these
crazy,
and they're not washed. Like, they can still contribute in limited minutes, but it's them and the Lakers. It's weird to see all these like former all-stars that are towards the end of their career ring chasing. It's just going to become more common.
Yep.
Which will be to Oklahoma City's detriment at some point.
Yeah, it's Brooklyn and the Lakers have cornered that market on building the all-star team from 2012.
Yep.
Yeah.
Justin, your thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets? I mean, it is 100% championship or bust, yeah?
Yep, 100%. And I think it's hard to argue with the summer that they had. They were already a really good team. And if they had some more health issues and maybe KD had a little bit smaller foot, we're talking about the way last season goes a lot differently. I think that assuming they're healthy, assuming, things continue to fall into place, they're going to be really freaking good next year. And I think getting KD to re-sign over the summer for a 4-year deal is probably one of the biggest moves of the entire offseason for any team. So if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan, I think you've got to feel great about this team heading into the season.
The possible tax bill they will pay once they get another extension on Harden and Irving as well is just insane. Like, it is absolutely crazy the amount of tax dollars they will pay. Nick, any other? I don't feel like Brooklyn, like, I don't know what else there is to say about them besides they're incredibly stacked and they should win an NBA title.
Yeah, no, I think it's that with them, it's going to be interesting to see how the regular season goes. And there's a lot of teams you can say about this every year. Like, how much do you rest your guys? How much does the regular season matter? I think the East is getting strong enough now where seeding actually does matter.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, like 3 years ago, you could say, who cares if you're the 1, 2, 3, 4 seed? Like, it's fine because there's not that many good teams in the East. With the Bulls coming up, the Hornets coming up, like, there's a lot of legitimate teams that are going to be 6, 7, 8, 9 seeds in the play-in and stuff that I think could give an injured Nets team a run for their money or an injured Bucks team a run for their money and take them to 6 games, which makes them tired for their next series. It's like a domino effect. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how teams load manage this year, especially with being their first 82-game season in 3 years.
Yeah. With 2 short and off seasons.
Yeah, two short seasons, 2 short off seasons, a whole lot of COVID. It's going to be interesting.
Definitely. All right. Well, the over-under for the Brooklyn Nets, 55.5. So if they hit the over 56, that would be 56-26, which is a really, really good season.
Yep.
Nick, what are you going with? You taking the over or the under here?
So the last time we had a full 82-game season, there were 3 teams that won more than 55 games. And if the same applies this year, one of those will likely be the Nets. So I'm going to take the over.
Nice. Taylor, what do you think?
I'm actually going the under here, not because I'm low on the Nets. When we end up doing our end of the off-season podcast, our season predictions, I'm going to have the Nets in the finals. But with that being said, just kind of to what Nick was mentioning there, they're an incredibly well-built team for the playoffs and the finals. But when it comes to the regular season, I do worry just a tad about depth, load management, etc. So because of all of that, I'm going to say that it's going to be the under, not by a ton. But I just don't think they're going to either be healthy or just even playing all those players at the same time for enough to get that over.
That's a great question. Let me give you a follow-up real quick to everybody on the show here, just real fast. If I were to place the over-under on games that Harden, Kyrie, and KD play together this season, and I place it at half the season, 41 games, do you think it's more or less?
Less.
I also think it is less.
Yeah,
I do too. But
That's
to your that kind of made me think of a counter argument to my own point. Like, even if you have 2 of those players for 60 of those games, like that's typically enough.
The odds of one of those guys getting hurt is high.
True.
Mhm.
The
That's
odds
kind of what I was
of
getting at. Yeah.
the odds of them playing all 3 against the Thunder twice, low.
Yeah.
True.
Like it just doesn't work out.
True.
Yeah.
If you're playing lesser teams, you're not going to play them.
I think it'll be less than 41 games that all 3 of those guys play together this year.
I've got one more fun one.
Okay. Go for it.
The take out the big 3.
Okay.
So the big 3 are out of the question. Who wins a series between that team and the Thunder?
That team.
Okay.
The Nets.
Oh,
Making
yeah.
sure. Making
Oh,
sure.
no,
I'm
it's
good.
not, it's not
Patty
necessarily
Mills.
close.
Okay. Just making sure.
Cam Thomas is just going to keep shooting the ball no matter what.
Yep.
Get Olympics Patty Mills out there.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Justin, 55.5 for Brooklyn. You going over or under?
I'm going over. I think the load management concerns are totally valid, but I think it was Nick that just said this, that, having 2 out of those 3 playing in any given game should be enough to beat most teams. So you don't need James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant to play all those games together when 2 of them can probably take you down. And I think they're going to win a lot of games that way. And if they can maintain their health into the playoffs, I mean, they at times in last year's playoffs looked unbeatable, and that's what I would expect to see again.
Yep. Silva?
We're talking about win totals, right? Not the games they're going to play.
Correct. Win totals, 55.5.
I'll probably take the over also. Maybe not by a lot, but I also think Kyrie, KD, and Harden kind of knew what they could have had last season had they been healthy, had they played more games together, especially in the playoffs. I think they might have like a fire under them that'll make them want to play more than they did the previous season, and they'll get a little bit further. They're my favorite for sure to win.
Very good. All right. So it seems like we got 3-2 on the over-under there, but I think all of us would probably take them to win the title. We'll see, though. Next team up in the Atlantic, not the Pacific, the Atlantic division. We have the surprise last season, New York Knicks. They went 41-31 to get 4th in the East. They go out in the first round against the Atlanta Hawks. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I don't watch professional wrestling, but one of them, WWE,
I think it was
AEW, WWF, whatever the hell it was. They were in New York City the other night, last Friday, and brought out Trae Young to the boos of Madison Square Garden. And
Just amazing.
Trae is just like the perfect villain for the New York Knicks.
Then they had him like come off like from the side of their arena and into the ring and like grab one of the wrestlers and like a headlock. It was just awesome.
So Knicks 41-31. They go out in the first round. Obviously, breakout star Julius Randle. Taylor, tell us what all the Knicks did this offseason.
So Alec Burks, D Rose, Elfrid Payton, Frank Ntilikina, Jared Harper, Nerlens Noel, Reggie Bullock, Taj Gibson, and Teo Pinson all were free agents for the Knicks heading into the offseason. They end up drafting Miles McBride and Quentin Grimes, 2 young guys that actually, they're actually kind of older in terms of draft picks, but I like them both quite a bit. Jared Sims signed a 2-way contract with the Knicks, which I think was a great pickup for them. Former Thunder player Nerlens Noel signed a multi-year contract with the Knicks. Obviously, this offseason, he filed a lawsuit against Clutch Sports, claiming, we don't have to get into all the nitty-gritty there, but claiming that Clutch kind of screwed him out some of his former contracts. So it was great to see him kind of sign longer term with a team. Kimball Walker, we talked about the Kimball Walker trade, obviously, with OKC, ended up signing a multi-year contract with the Knicks. Evan Fournier from the Celtics, he signed a multi-year contract with the Celtics as part of a sign-and trade to the Knicks. Taj Gibson came back on a multi-year contract. D Rose came back. Alec Burks came back. And again, Evan Fournier, a conditional 2022 second-round pick, and the least favorable 2023 second-round pick were acquired by the Knicks from the Celtics in exchange for cash and a TPE. And then the only, Julius Randle signed a veteran extension. Not necessarily a supermax, but a pretty favorable extension for him with the Knicks as well. So those were kind of the biggest things here that they end up doing. They just kind of solidified their present and added a little bit to their future.
Yeah, not a lot of stuff going out the door for the Knicks this offseason. Adding some guys that I think don't get anyone super excited. Like Knicks fans are excited for Kemba, and that's awesome for them. Kemba with the homecoming, right? But Kemba to me, Evan Fournier to me, those aren't players that move the needle a ton. But Justin, what do you think about the Knicks going into this next season? Can they build off that success of last season? Do we see RJ Barrett take another jump? And do we see the Knicks win a playoff series?
The biggest question mark for me is all around Julius Randle. Like, he played out of his mind last year. And I don't know, like, does he have it in him again? We haven't really seen that Julius Randle in the NBA before. If it's just like, hey, that's who he is now, he found his place in New York and he's unlocked a new level, then the Knicks are going to be kind of back in the same place. I think it all kind of rides on him. I have my doubts.
I think the contract has his doubts too.
Yeah, I would expect a bit of a regression from Julius Randle, and I think with that, the Knicks are going to take a little regression with him. I'm not super high on the Kemba addition. I don't think it's going to be a negative add, but I'm not sure that it really raises their ceiling very far. I think the other X factor, like you mentioned, RJ Barrett. What can he take, or what leap can he take? What does he have available in his arsenal? And can he step up and pull the Knicks to a higher plateau? Because outside of that, I would expect slightly worse results than what we saw from the Knicks last year.
Yep. I got a lot of thoughts on the Knicks. I'll try to keep it fairly brief. One is on a former Knick, Frank Ntilikina. Is he done in the NBA? Like, still not signed by anybody? Maybe he'll get a training camp spot, but like the direction he's going is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like, I think at some point,
surprising. I think that he, or maybe concerning is the right term there, that he hasn't been picked up.
Yep. I think for the Knicks, the biggest thing, like Julius Randle is the huge one, and I think the fact that he didn't get this like super humongous mega contract is very telling. Like the Knicks don't think he's a max contract guy. That's kind of concerning. Two being who's going to play defense. Like Mitchell Robinson's a good rim protector when he's healthy, but you've got a bunch of offense and no one that can defend, Kemba included. And then there's also like Justin and I got a really close look at Obi Toppin and Manuel Quickley a couple times in summer league, and they were way too good to be there.
Yep.
Do they actually make a jump, or are they NBA good, or are they just too good for summer league, kind of in that middle ground? Like Obi Toppin has the ability to make an impact in the NBA. Like he was picked where he was for a reason. He's got the NBA build. He's super strong. Can he average more than like the 4 points a game he did last year? And then same with Emmanuel Quickley. Like he was dropping 30, 35 points in summer league like it was nothing. Can he be a bench spark when they've already got Derrick Rose and Kimball Walker who can be trying to score every time? Like there's so many weird roster fit questions, which is very Knicks. Like they signed 15 power forwards 2 years ago. It's just they always make these signings that like on paper, like, oh, that's a good signing. But then you start looking at the roster and you're like, how do these guys fit? So I think it's going to be a super interesting team. My biggest question is defense, because like the Dallas Mavericks experience every single year, you can put together a lot of offensive talent, but if you're not playing D, you're not going anywhere.
I think that's very fair. That is very fair. It's going to be interesting to see what the Knicks do next season. Guys, the Knicks over-under for next year, right at 50-50. It's 42.5. So if they go under and are at 40
fair.
41, right, a game and a half under, they'd be at 41-41. So it's a 50-50 season, which would be a drop from last year. Do you think
Vegas has them at 500?
Yeah, 42.5, so slightly over. It's not much.
This is not
That's
advice
tough.
that should be taken seriously, but go hammer
This
the
is
over
not
in
betting
Vegas.
advice.
Holy cow, I'm surprised.
You're very clearly taking the over, Nick?
Yes.
Okay.
No question.
I'm texting Hudson right now. I'm telling him that Nick and I are in on the over.
Dude, that's kind of shocking.
Taylor, you're in on the over as well?
I'm in on the over as well. I'm not super high on them in terms of just the Eastern Conference in general. Kind of like Nick mentioned, I'd love Quickly. Toppin I'm still a little questionable about, but it just kind of feels like the Knicks are playing that like middle ground game, right? Like they just still are. They don't want to go all the way in on some of these players because they're still holding out for one of those, the KD, Kyrie Irving type free agents coming up and whatever hypothetical offseason they're thinking about at this point. But with that being said, I do really like their team, and for them to go 500 would be very surprising to me. So I'm going the over as well.
I mean, they won 41 games last year in a shortened season.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Randall's leap is like legit. I don't know if he's going to make another one, but I think he'll still have similar production.
Justin, what are you going with for the Knicks?
I'm not as bullish as those two. I think I'm still taking the over, but I might put it right at 43 wins. Like, I don't think it's far beyond that. I think that to me feels like Nick mentioned, they won 41 games last year in a 72 game season. I think that, a regression of 10-ish games feels right to me. That's kind of in line with what I was thinking in terms of going into the season. I think that Julius Randle probably won them that many games last year that they maybe shouldn't have won. So I don't know. I don't think I'm going to put them at 500. So I'm still going to stick with the over, but I don't think they're going to be way over.
Whenever I look at the East, the Bulls are better.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Pacers are going to be better.
Heat are better.
The Heat are better. The Charlotte Hornets are better.
Yep.
There's like a lot of better teams in the East now that I don't know. If I go over, it's not by much. Silva, where do you land with the Knicks?
He's the tiebreaker. No pressure.
I'm probably also. I looked it up just to make sure. I heard on the mismatch, Kevin O'Connor said Frank Ntilikina, there's a high chance he plays in Italy.
Wow!
This upcoming season. I was looking it up.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a possibility, I guess. But I would probably take the over. I don't know by how much, but I'm guessing those odds, kind of like Jacob was just saying, it's just because the teams around them got better. Like people probably think the Hawks are going to win more games because of how they performed in the playoffs last year.
True.
Even though part of that was because of circumstances. But yeah, I'm gonna take the over.
Like what teams in the East are like clearly tanking? Orlando,
yeah.
I don't know.
Cleveland is going to suck, but they don't want to suck. They're going to try hard. I just don't think they're going to be that good.
I think Cleveland and Orlando both are trying to win, actually.
Yep.
At least
I don't think they're going
initially.
to intentionally lose. I just think they're going to suck. Right.
But there's always, I think the Thunder might be the only team in the whole NBA that are going into the season knowing they suck. I think the Cavaliers and the Magic both are going to go in. Like the Cavaliers are signing guys every day that are like for winning. Yeah. I don't think they're actually going to win games.
Let me rephrase that phrase. Let me rephrase that for you. The Cavaliers are signing centers every day that should contribute to winning.
Yes.
And let's see if we end up. Yeah. Are we
personally? I'm excited.
Playoff spot heading into the deadline. Are we not?
So, but no, I agree with you. I just think the East has a lot of teams that are going to try really hard to win basketball games.
Yeah.
Like I don't think the Cavs are going to win much, but I think their front office is under an immense amount of pressure to win.
Detroit won't be great, but
yep.
Yeah, but they won't be horrible either. I mean, their rookies from last year are good. You're adding Cade there. You've got Jeremy Grant. Like they've got a pretty good squad,
Wizards are deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wizards. That Wizards team. Taylor and I talked about them last week. They're weird. They're a weird team. There's got to be some consolidation stuff happening. Something.
Right.
I don't know. Something they're just.
Right.
They're a weird team.
Very, very, very weird.
All right. Enough with the New York Knicks. We all went over, but some of us are going slightly less over. Let's move to a team that is really fascinating for next year, and that is the Philadelphia 76ers. Last season, they go 49-23. They lose in the second round of the playoffs to the Atlanta Hawks. An incredibly surprising series loss for a Philly team that had title hopes, kind of culminating and all coming to a head with Ben Simmons catching a pass underneath the basket and deciding to not dunk it and instead pass it out as he was wide open, which I think was the last straw, the last thread that was pulled out that made everything unravel and fall apart. Before we have Taylor dive into Philly's offseason, just a quick straw poll here of everyone on the show. Will Ben Simmons be in a Philly uniform on official game 1 of the NBA season? How many of you guys say yes?
I do.
Yes.
I'm basing it off of I'm basing it off of a similar situation. I know it was like the opposite because they were acquiring Jimmy Butler, but Jimmy Butler's situation feels very similar where we knew he was going to be gone. They're not going to settle for a package they don't want because it's franchise altering. And I think they're fine going into this season with awkwardness because you'd rather have that than go for somebody you don't want.
That's
Well, let me
that's
rephrase
more
it
to
then.
a T.
Is he wearing a Philly uniform? Season starts October 20th. Is he wearing a Philly uniform after Thanksgiving?
No.
Yeah,
I
he's
think
traded by
the
Thanksgiving.
James Harden situation is
Yes.
also a good
Mhm.
reference point here. I think it's gonna start like he's gonna begrudgingly show up to training camp.
Yep.
The season's gonna start, and then it's gonna become clear to everyone that it's not fixable, and
And
that's
eventually
gonna
one
motivate.
team will give in.
It's
and
gonna
maybe
motivate all
outbid some of these
parties.
other
Yeah,
teams.
maybe in his best interest to make it a toxic situation, kind of force his
Right.
hand. Because like right now he can't force his hand other than like the reports of like he's
Yep.
not talking to the team. Like
He's
cool.
not showing up to training camp.
But when
Yeah.
you start showing up to games on a team that wants to win and you're not all there, and there's that's when you really force their hand.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, if you're saying, is he going to be wearing a Philly uniform? No, because he's going to be sitting on the bench. I don't think he plays on the court for the 76ers. But I also agree that he's probably traded by Thanksgiving. There has to be kind of a meet in the middle, come to Jesus moment with Morey and some of these other teams, right? Like, he has to lower his expectations. Like, no way he's going to pay the James Harden ransom that he wants. But I think and fair to his point, like, I think there's going to be teams that need to meet him halfway and realize that Ben Simmons is an all-star talent, right? And they're going
All
to have
NBA
to,
talent.
yeah, right. And they're going to have to pay more than just for a specific example, more than just, Beasley and what was the Timberwolves package if they didn't include D'Lo? It was
Bad.
ridiculous. It was
Bad.
bad. Right.
Bad.
They have to do better than that. But nobody
All
wants to right now. They want to get him on dimes on the dollar.
Taylor, tell us the trades and the signings that Philly has made so far.
So Anthony Tolliver, Rajon Tucker, George Hill, Danny Green, Dwight Howard, Furkan Korkmaz, Gary Clark.
That Furkan Korkmaz, man.
Korkmaz, Gary Clark, Mike Scott. And those were all their free agents heading into the season. They end up drafting Jaden Springer, signed him to a multi-year
I do
contract
like Jaden Springer.
out of Tennessee. Yeah,
Mhm.
this was an interesting one, particularly because of some of the tension between this player and their star center being Joel Embiid. They signed Andre Drummond to a contract, which is pretty interesting.
Maybe a hot take. I hate that. I
do too.
really, really hate that.
I did too. Now, they did re-sign Danny Green to a multi-year contract, which I thought was pretty interesting because if we're being completely honest, Danny Green has struggled, was in a lot of trade rumors over the past season, much less the past offseason with the 76ers, so that probably is more so just a trade chip, but obviously can contribute as well while he's on the team. Aaron Henry, I don't even know who that is. If we're being completely honest, signed a two-way contract with the Sixers. Joel Embiid signed a extension, which is pretty huge with the Sixers that apparently he negotiated by himself. Granted, when you're signing that kind of a contract, I don't think there's a ton of negotiations going into that, but good for Joel nevertheless. And they waived George Hill, which was kind of interesting. Anthony Tolliver became a free agent, which I think they waived him. Nothing too crazy outside of that. So again, another team that didn't make a ton of huge changes, locks up Joel long term. And the big thing here is just waiting to see what happens with Ben Simmons.
Justin, what are you looking at for Philly for next season, especially a Ben Simmons trade package and what they need to bring back? They are very clearly in win now mode, trying to get a title. So what are you expecting from them next year? And what type of return do they need to get for a Ben Simmons package to make their goals a reality?
Well, what I'm looking for in Philly next year is cheesesteak. I think that's my highest hopes for Philly next season. Love a good Philly cheesesteak. I was kind of low on the Sixers last year. Pull the tapes, go back to last year's season preview pods.
This is very true because I was very, very high on Philly last year.
I didn't see how all the pieces fit together. Now, to be fair. I could never have foreseen the Simmons and Embiid fallout like it happened. So I'm not going to take credit for that. But I don't, man, it's just too much dysfunction for me to feel good about predicting them to do anything of value this season. And I think that every day that Ben Simmons is not traded is going to be detrimental to their final outcome for the season. So I'm very curious to see how the season starts. I'm very curious to see when that deal is done. Honestly, for this season, I don't know that the trade package they get for Ben Simmons matters. And that may be like a bit harsh, but like outside of a generational superstar, which they're not going to get, I don't think that there's anybody that the Sixers bring in that's like, oh yes, title favorites. Like they're going to go toe to toe. They're my pick to go toe to toe with Brooklyn. I don't think that trade package exists. At least not a realistic one. And so I think if I'm the Sixers, I'm looking to get good rotational guys. I'm looking to get somebody that jives better with Joel Embiid. And I'm looking to get some near future draft assets to build out the back half of your bench. And I think that's a good package if you're the Sixers. I think that, I don't know if that's good in Daryl Morey terms, but if I were the Sixers, that's what I would be looking for.
Who do they get that from? Give me your prediction. Like, where does Ben Simmons get traded? Not for Ben Simmons' fit, but for Philly getting what they need to stay relevant now and to extend their window a bit.
I've got one. It's the only one that I could ever think of that would actually work, and it's Toronto with Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, I agree with that. If they were to, them being the Sixers, were to lower their expectations, I keep thinking about the Pacers as well, like Brogdon and draft picks and young players in return. I think the Pacers could make some sort of offer better than the Timberwolves or the Kings, assuming the Kings aren't willing to give up Halliburton and Fox.
If I'm the Pacers and I'm getting Ben Simmons, I don't see how Ben Simmons coexists with both Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis. And Turner is the one that'll space the floor more for you, which I think means you have to get off of Sabonis. And I think Sabonis is the better player. So I don't.
I think, long story short, there's not a package where you're still as good as you were last year. So expect a step back.
I think there's a package where the pieces fit better.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think you're in a situation where no matter who you trade for, Joel Embiid's the best player on your team. And we've seen time and time again that a center can't be the best player on your team.
What about like really bad filler? Like nobody wants them filler. A couple of picks, and my guy, the guy that I love, who, oh my gosh, I just went brain dead.
Don't love him too much.
Yeah, apparently so. Oh my goodness, the guard out in Sacramento,
Halliburton.
Tyrese Halliburton. Hallie, is that too much for Ben?
I don't think they're going to trade him.
You don't do that.
I think Hallie would fit so good on that team. That Philly team.
You also have Maxey. Like, how high do they think of Maxey?
That's true.
I don't know that answer.
Apparently, there's reports that Maxey's out too.
Do you trade everything?
That's a good point.
If you're the Wolves, do you trade everything not named Cat and Edwards?
Though the report came out yesterday or 2 days ago that Cat and Edwards are absolute non-starters. D'Angelo Russell is also a no at this point, although he's more likely. And they're really only interested in Malik Beasley package. That's why it hasn't been done.
I don't think Morey would take even a package with D'Lo.
I think D'Lo would fit there because he wouldn't have to be the guy. He's not somebody. He would be a guy that's relied on to get other guys the basketball at that point.
I want a pure point guard on that team.
I think it's the best they could do, but I don't love it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just a pretty bad situation for both sides at this point. Lose. Well, I say that. Lose for the Sixers, maybe a win for Ben Simmons just getting out.
I'm still on board with Ben Simmons starting center for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
I would do it.
If you can get him on, or it would have to be on the discount. But I agree completely. If they can come in and kind of be like the Paul George situation, right? You're not giving up too much for him. Yeah. It'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun.
It's interesting. That domino, I think, is going to be very significant. What happens with the rest of the league as
Agreed.
well.
Yep.
Agreed.
So, Justin, the over/under for the Philadelphia 76ers, 51.5.
Under, but I would not touch that betting line with a 10-foot pole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nick, you're shaking your head. Are you under as well?
I was shaking my head because I agree I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole for the reasons that they may get a horrible return, but Jacob, you just said it perfectly. Maybe the puzzle pieces fit better.
So what are you going, over or under?
Answer
the question. You can't dodge the question, buddy.
I'm 100. I'm willing to put money on the
Nick,
under.
we've talked about this. I'm a teacher. I can tell when you're dodging the question, buddy.
I'm going to go.
When kids give me a bunch of BS because they don't know the answer, so they just skirt around it.
I'm going to go Shake Milton takes another jump, and we're going over.
There we go. Bring
love
it, baby.
Taylor?
So I'm even willing to put money on the under just because I don't think they're going to get the assets required to even obtain a Ben Simmons or a Bradley Beal. I think there's other teams who will come in and offer way more than they can offer.
Silva, where do you land?
Give me a Seth Curry breakout year, baby.
There we go.
Whoa.
No, I'm going the over. I'm going with a slide over, probably like 52, 53 wins, maybe.
Okay.
51
going
and 3/4.
I don't feel good about it. But,
51 and 3/4.
They lose that fourth quarter. I'm going to go the under. I'm going to go 50 even. 50 and 32.
Hey, what if Davion Mitchell is very good in the NBA? Then would you, if you
That's
Sacramento?
fair.
Do you feel like maybe
Halliburton becomes more expendable?
or Fox? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how much higher you guys are. How much higher are you on Fox over Halliburton, or are you higher on Fox than Halliburton?
I think Fox is the better player. I think Fox maybe has the higher ceiling. But I see a lot of Shea and Hallie. I think Halliburton's really freaking good, dude.
Yeah,
I like that
he
kid
is.
a lot. And if your backcourt is Halliburton and Davion Mitchell ends up
Yep.
being fine, and you could run those two and then run Ben at your 4, that could be a fun lineup.
No, thank you.
You don't want Ben at the 4?
I don't want to give up De'Aaron Fox for Ben Simmons.
I don't either.
Oh,
I don't care how good you think Halliburton and
I'm not
Davion
even
Mitchell
sure
could
I'd give
be.
Halliburton up for Ben
If you're the
Simmons.
Kings,
I'm
you haven't made
just-
the playoffs in that long, you're going to make that kind of gamble that you think these two, it's a rookie and a second-year guy, might be the front court or the back court of the future. No.
When you put it that way, that's exactly what the Kings are going to do.
but it's also getting an all-star
Yes.
that the Kings were generationally bad at defense last year. Ben fixes a lot of those problems.
Mm.
It's interesting.
So does
Well,
Davion
I
Mitchell,
don't
though.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But Davion Mitchell is also a rookie, right? Ben
True,
Simmons
but
is
he was
multi
Dude,
all-time
dude.
NBA.
he was real fun.
He
at
is
Summer
going to
League.
be a legit defender.
He's like stink on poo.
He is
Yeah.
he is so quick that it's mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Anyone want to make a bet on Ben Simmons'
No.
next
Hate
team?
him.
No.
Yeah. I'm still going Toronto.
I'll take
Yeah,
you on the bet, Nick. We need to pay up bets anyways, real soon before we do our season bets
You
for
can't
next
choose
year.
Portland though.
I'm taking the Kings. So you
Okay.
take Toronto, I'll take the Kings. If he gets traded to Toronto, what do I owe you?
Jeez.
Jeez.
What do you guys?
Not
What do
food.
you guys?
Not food.
Oh,
We
okay.
do food, dude. We owe each other so much goddamn
So
food.
much food.
We're gonna have a friggin' buffet.
There's a
of,
reason.
preseason.
$25 Amazon gift card.
Deal. If he gets traded to Sacramento, you owe me a $25 Amazon card. If he gets traded to Toronto, I owe you $25 Amazon
Likely
card.
gonna scratch, but it's okay.
Probably. And that's fine. I'm poor. So that'll be good for me.
He's gonna be playing in China next year.
Shanghai Sharks, baby.
Shanghai Sharks. There we go.
Our last team of the Atlantic Division, gentlemen, the Toronto Raptors. Now, again, officially the Toronto Raptors, no longer the Tampa Raptors. Last season, they go 27-45, 12th in the East. They were bad. And then they lucked out in the lottery, those bastards.
Those
and jumped
bastards.
up. No playoff appearance. Obviously, they were ready to get the hell out of Dodge, get back up north of the border, back to the 6, as the certified lover boy would say. Taylor, tell us what Toronto did in the offseason.
So yeah, like you said, definitely a pivotal offseason, I feel like, for the Toronto Raptors. It's going to be interesting to see the direction they go. Aaron Baines, DeAndre Bembry, Paul Watson, Rodney Hood, Gary Trent Jr., Kim Birch, Kyle Lowry, Stanley Johnson, all free agents. Now, before we get into who they end up signing and re-signing, like you said, Jacob, they ended up getting Scotty Barnes, 4th overall in the draft, which was huge. They also end up with a Canadian guard, Delano Banton, 46 overall, and guard David Johnson, 47th. Yeah, pretty big. That's time exciting. There. Now, Kim Birch signed a multi-year contract with the Raptors, ended up re-signing with them. Kyle Lowry was acquired, obviously, by the Miami Heat, as we discussed last week, in exchange for Precious Achiuwa, Goran Dragic, and a TPE. A lot of rumors, nothing official yet, that Dragic will eventually be bought out by the Raptors and will probably end up signing with his fellow countryman Luka Doncic in Dallas and Nick and Justin's neck of the woods. Aaron Baines became a free agent. They ended up not re-signing him, but Gary Trent Jr. signed a multi-year contract with the Raptors. I mentioned Scotty Barnes. Let's see. Oh, Justin Champagne, just because he has an awesome last name, ended up signing a 2-way contract with the Raptors. He was an undrafted free agent. And trying to find, Isaac Bonga signed a contract with the Raptors, released from the Washington Wizards. That's a fun young piece that I like with that team. And then former Thunder player Svi Mykhailiuk signed a multi-year contract with the Raptors. So that's kind of the big moves there that the Raptors ended up doing. It definitely seems like they're pivoting more towards a younger team, but still they aren't going super young like the Thunder, right? They're kind of continuing to build around that core players like Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet and others. So yeah, pretty busy offseason for them.
Justin, what are you looking forward to with Toronto next year? How are you feeling about that team?
Old Scott Barnes is going to be real fun to watch. He's an enormous human being, and I'm really excited to see. Excuse me. I'm really excited to see how... You were
getting some real good bass in that voice
like that?
There. Yeah.
I should have a little raspy.
You should narrate that Josh Giddey picture.
That's my Batman voice.
Oh, yeah.
So, where am I? Scotty Barnes. He's going to be good. I think he's going to be fun to watch. I don't know that they're going to be massively better. That's starting to sound like Tibbs.
Who you guys did see in your defense.
We did see Tibbs.
Did you get to hear him talk?
No.
Did you actively watch him eat cigarettes?
This is Tibbs. You're listening to the Uncontested podcast.
I feel like he doesn't smoke.
Mask was covered in saliva.
I feel like Tibbs doesn't smoke. He just eats the cigarettes, filter and all. Just straight down the hatch.
And they're lit.
While they're lit.
His mouth is an ashtray. Wow.
He smokes them backwards.
Scotty Barnes.
He lights it, then flips it around and inhales. He ain't no bitch.
Candy.
The good news is that nobody's still listening to this podcast anymore, so nobody's going to hear any of this. No, I felt like the opposite of the Knicks, maybe. Like the Raptors were kind of like the Thunder in that they were not like the Thunder. Sorry, but this is a really good segment. They were worse than they should have been. Their record was worse than they should have been last year. And I wouldn't expect that to continue this year. And I think adding Scotty Barnes helps. I think adding Svi Mykhailiuk, I give up. Adding Svi helps. I think they'll be marginally better. Someone else talk now.
No, I agree. I think they lost a lot of games on the stretch, similar to the Thunder. I was actually picking up what you were putting down there. The Thunder definitely should not have lost 19 of their last 21 games. I think they'll be a little bit better too. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. I do think they could be sellers at the deadline. I do think Pascal Siakam could be on the move. But no, they've got a lot of young, intriguing pieces. They're in a really, really good spot. I think they'll be good 2 to 3 years from now. But this year, they'll be okay.
That's what's interesting to me, right? It's like they're one of those teams that have kind of they've played what you call the middle ground, right? They didn't go all in on tanking, but they did get away some of those veterans. They built around their current timeline, like I mentioned, with their acquisitions this offseason, which to your point, Nick, like puts them in a very interesting spot. It kind of reminds me of the Hawks. Jacob and I were talking about the Hawks last week, right? Like they have all these young pieces. They can either swing for the fences on a Ben Simmons or a player like that after they kind of evaluate their pieces this regular season, or they can just continue to kind of play it out and be a kind of a middle of the road team and then reevaluate this offseason and see what happens. So I'm very curious kind of to see the direction that Masai goes. It'll be interesting. Also, they signed him again They re-signed him to a longer contract.
Their team is very interesting in the sense it's almost Thunderish as far as the style of player they have targeted. Now they have Pascal Siakam, they have OG Anunoby, they have Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa. They have these really, really big wings that are very versatile and like high IQ and can really pass the ball. It's a little bit different than the Thunder in the sense that like a lot of the Toronto guys are, I think, a lot more athletic and maybe a little less cerebral. But it's fascinating to me. Like they could run a lineup of Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, and Precious Achiuwa out there. And that's like 4 of your 5 guys. And then all those dudes are like 6'8" or taller, So the versatility they have in that front court, I think, is really, really fascinating. Now, interesting to me, they're over under 36.5. Pretty low, I thought. Yeah. Where do you guys land on this one? Nick, we'll start with you.
Over. That's a really, really low number.
Yeah, like, I was really surprised at how low that one was.
Yeah, I'm going over.
Justin, where are you?
I think I'll take the over as well.
Nice. Taylor?
That feels like an easy over. But again, like we talked about last week, you have to take the rest of the East into consideration. But even then, like I feel like, like the Raptors are either going to make a move that makes them better, or they're going to stay as is and continue to improve as a unit. So I'll take the over as well, I think. But like who is under if they aren't?
Yeah. Silva.
I'm going over for sure. They're back in Toronto. They'll have, although Kyle Lowry left, they'll have a healthy, young, exciting team. So over for sure.
We didn't talk much about Gary Trent Jr., who I think helps them a lot. And who was the rookie point guard they had last season that ended up being real good? I think you guys saw him out
Malachi Flynn.
Yeah, I think Malachi Flynn can be real good as well. So they've got some interesting pieces that I think if they can kind of put everything together, they can be very good defensively with all those big, long wings. I think it'll be a fun team. So awesome. True. Well, gentlemen, we went a little long tonight, but that's okay. It was fun talking about other teams, have some content to fill. So with that being said, I think it is time for us to get out of here. Thank you guys for joining the show tonight. We really appreciate you. If this is your first time tuning into the Uncontested, thanks so much for joining. If you're on the live stream, make plans to come join us again next Sunday at 9 p.m. Central Time. We'll also be on Wednesday night around 8:30 p.m. Central Time, so join us then as well. If you listen to the podcast version of this, hey, thanks for clicking that download button, man. We appreciate you. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you subscribe, drop a 5-star rating. Makes us feel better. Also helps more people see the podcast. It's good for everybody. You do a good deed, we receive a good deed. Who's not happy in that situation, really? So thank you guys again so much. Have a great start of your week. We will be back with you again Wednesday night, right here, same place again, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Until then, and as always, Thunder up.